Episode 10.
Episode 10, we made it to the 10th episode. That's big.
Major.
In the podcast world, it's a big industry right now.
What did you tell me? The most podcasts don't get past which episode?
Episode 10.
Oh, was it 10?
Yes.
I thought it was, okay.
So that's why I'm so excited, because podcasts is a big industry right now. A lot of people are starting podcasts. It's difficult. It takes a lot of work, especially when it's just us. We don't have production. We don't have audio. We don't have producers.
Do we know.
Yeah, we went through a production faux pas, would you say, today?
I don't even know what to
fuck
call
up.
it. Was it a fuck up? It's not a
The universe fucked us.
Yeah, the universe.
We did everything we normally do, and we kind of
back on track.
Back on track. We'll get there. But it is episode 10. We made it to episode 10. We're so excited. The past 2 episodes, we've kind of been hinting about a money fight. And we're going to talk about that fight.
Dun, dun, dun.
We're going to talk bluntly about our finances. What do I mean by bluntly? We're going to actually give numbers. We're going to give numbers for like the past year or so, like what our income was looking like, our expenses were looking like, and how poorly we were managing our money. And then we're going to introduce our very first guest, which I'm so excited about.
Well, we can say, because if you click this, you're going to see who the guest is. So.
Oh, yeah. So our guest is Cindy, the founder and CEO of Zero Based Budget Coaching LLC. And it was awesome. The conversation we had with her was awesome. So inspiring, so motivating, so real, so raw. So relatable in so many different ways.
Cindy looks like us.
Yes.
That's like the major
Bronx. Part. You'll meet her. She's like totally awesome. She's someone who I've been following on Instagram, who has been providing not only motivation and inspiration for our finances, but also information, right? She is very knowledgeable, and she shares that knowledge with her audience, which is why I absolutely love her. So that's part of this show is going to be phenomenal. So please stick around for that after the tea and the drama that we're going to give you. Okay. So before we get into that, how are you feeling today, Travis?
Oh God, I'm Travis again. I thought we made leaps and bounds to
Oh gosh.
I'm feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little bummed about our recording error, but still feeling great. Work's been good, making some progress with some things I've been working on that you know about. So I'm feeling good.
Okay, good.
How are you?
I'm doing well. If you watched last episode, you know that I have resigned from my job.
Oh, you actually did it.
I actually did it. It's official. I'm technically an employee till September 8th.
Okay.
But my classroom has already been given to someone else. My email has been blocked from the school email.
Okay, they waste no time.
They waste no time, which is another reminder, like, your job will go on without you. Things will be okay. And it's okay to prioritize yourself and your family.
That's a fact.
When the time comes. Like, my boss was super nice about it, super supportive. And, something she said to me was like, within our school, we're like a family. But at the end of the day, it is a job. And sometimes we have to make decisions that are in the best interest of our actual families, So that felt really nice that she was so understanding. But yeah, I'm doing well, getting adjusted to being a stay-at-home mom. I know I'm going to suck at it, but it's okay.
You're doing good. You're doing a good job. You're doing a good job.
Doing a good job. I feel like the mic is like a little far from me. Oh, it's good there. All right. So, you ready?
Yeah.
All right. So I basically have a snapshot of our finances and where we were at the beginning of June. Okay. Because I feel like in June, we really took a hard look at our finances because I was a couple of months pregnant and we had decided we need a car, right? We've been New Yorkers without cars for like maybe the past 3 years. And we never really felt a need to have a car. But now, because of COVID and a baby, and we just felt like it was safer for our family to have a vehicle to like go back and forth to appointments, X, Y, and Z. So it forced us to take a look at our finances, right? So in June, we realized that our take-home pay from our jobs, our salary jobs, after taxes, retirement contributions, we also have Eli's college fund being automatically taken out of our check. So our take-home pay for a month was $7,200.
Okay.
Right? And, in New York, that's not a lot.
It's chump change.
In New York, that's not a lot. Our expenses were $3,800. So that meant rent, utilities. We budgeted, about $400 for food a month. We budgeted laundry expenses. Basically everything that was like a necessity, we calculated as $3,800 a month. So that left us with about $3,400 a month, right? Mm. Were we responsible with those $3,400?
Of course, no.
Anytime we looked at what was left over of our income, we always said we could save $1,000. We could use another $1,000 to like upgrade this, or we could use just this amount for dinners out, for activities as a family. But then what would always happen?
We'd overspend like a motherfucker.
We'd overspend. But we didn't get into debt only because both of us have a side hustle. So the $3,400 we had left over was not enough to cover the lifestyle we were living that we could not afford. Luckily, we both have our side hustle. So what was your side hustle?
So I dabble in like the sneaker reselling, or just I'd say reselling in general. Mm-hmm. Mostly sneakers.
What does that look like? Not everybody knows what sneaker reselling is.
So there are highly sought after sneakers. Uh-huh. They're not easy to get, which make their resale much higher than their retail. So sometimes 5 mm-hmm. times more, if sometimes even higher than that. Mm-hmm. So I'd buy at retail, sell for the resale, sometimes, 2 to 5 times more its retail value, mm-hmm. and take in that profit.
Okay. So it's like you're investing in an item instead of a stock.
Definitely.
Okay. Got it. And I have a tutoring business that I started almost a year ago exactly. It's coming up on the 1-year anniversary of my business.
During the pandemic?
Yes. During the pandemic, I started a tutoring business because I obviously saw the need for supplemental learning for our kids whose learning had been interrupted greatly by the pandemic. And I was doing pretty good. Like on a full month, I was rotating about 15 students a month. It was doing really well. And we had no money to show for it.
Yeah.
So our overspending was so bad that it didn't even look like I had a side business. It didn't look like you had your side hustle. We were just month to month making it by the skin of our teeth because we were just overspending.
Yeah. So there was a lot of money coming in, but
you couldn't tell.
Exactly.
You could tell by the fact that, we were doing the things we liked. We refurnished our apartment, things like of that nature, but we weren't saving anything. We could have made larger contributions to Eli's college fund. We could have made larger contributions to our retirement fund. We could have been saving to buy a car in cash instead of having to finance it. So there's a lot of shoulda, coulda, woulda, and, obviously we all told you before in the previous years, we were very diligent about paying our debt. We were very diligent about paying for my master's degree. But then once those were done, we kind of like, oh, we're good.
Let's ball out.
Exactly. And it's kind of like, we talk about this a little bit with Cindy. It's kind of like diet culture. Like you go hard, you like cut carbs, you're eating keto, you're doing whatever, you lose the 50 pounds, and then what? Then you just stop. You can easily
gain it back.
And the same with money and discipline and finances. Yeah, we did all of those things and I'm proud of us for it. I would never knock us for that. But okay, now what?
Yeah.
It shouldn't have been just the goal of being debt free. It should have been financial discipline for the long term, which I would say maybe the past year or 2 years, we kind of failed at that.
Yeah.
We didn't really have a plan and we kind of were just spending.
I think for us, it was just that we hit that goal. So now we have this achievement and, you know, I was proud of that achievement. We're debt free. But what's next? And the what's next was that conversation needed to happen. It never happened. Well,
or it would happen, but we didn't really take it seriously.
Yeah, it was all right. We're debt free now. We're good. But now that you've hit that milestone, you realize, oh shit, there's more. There's more to this than just being debt free.
Absolutely. So then in June, we were like, you know what? We make enough money to get a car. We didn't save enough money to buy a car, but we have excellent credit. We could finance a car. And obviously there's enough income coming in that we can make the payments every month. We could pay for our insurance. We could cover parking. We can do all of those things. So we basically added another $1,350 worth of expenses to our expenses every month.
Yeah.
Which was
the car, the insurance, parking.
And then I put in a buffer for like gas and maintenance.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, we had this extra money month to month that we were just blowing. Now it'll force us to direct that money into something we need. And it's interest free. We have great credit. So as long as we pay it off in 60 months, we won't even pay $1 extra in interest. Fine. We did not anticipate that I would resign my job come September.
Definitely not.
Definitely not. And even in the summer, we kind of started to think, or we have also mentioned in the podcast that our neighborhood has been, you know, an increase in violence. And we just for the first time has started talking about leaving the Bronx and maybe buying a house outside. So we were like, all right, we can't play. We know we make X amount of dollars. We have no idea how much money we actually make from our side hustles because we're not tracking it correctly, but we should. These are our goals. We should save X amount of dollars a month starting in September. That was like our goal.
Yeah.
And then we had our fight.
Conversation.
Our conversation. The reason I was so feisty on a couple episodes back. So what was that conversation like?
So we did like we normally do, sit down in front of a Excel sheet that we both kind of put together, and I'll go in there sporadically and update our numbers. And I think the numbers were pretty up to date when we sat down.
And by numbers, he means like what we owe on credit cards. So we don't use debit for anything. We charge everything to credit cards, but we always pay it off in full before the statement. So we never pay interest. We also earn points, so cash back for the card we mostly use for our day-to-day purchases. And, you know, it keeps our credit cards open to basically do that. So at the end of the month, we're like, okay, how much have we spent? And let's pay it back, which is totally okay if you're spending within your budget. Were we doing that? No. We were just spend, which is why the $3,400 we had as wiggle room, plus any money that we made off our side hustles was going to pay off all the expenses that we blew that month without thinking.
Yeah.
And, you know, this isn't like designer clothes. This isn't like lavish vacations. These are just the small things day to day that add up without us realizing. Expensive dinners, maybe. Overspending at the grocery store and then still ordering takeout. So then the money we spend at the grocery store goes to waste because the food is rotting in the fridge.
I know a lot of you can relate to, let's say you go to BJ's and you spend 2 to 3 hours. Maybe you spent about $500 on groceries, but then on your way home, Or maybe once you get home, you order food.
And listen, and that's okay if that's the only time you do it, because doing all that grocery shopping, sometimes you don't want to cook when you get home. But then if you're doing it every other day for the next 3 weeks, all that money you spend on groceries, the food's going bad. And takeout now is more expensive. There's like a COVID tax if you're ordering Uber Eats.
Then you better be
surcharge.
tipping.
You better be tipping, because these people are working during a pandemic that your lazy ass doesn't want to do. You better leave a nice tip. So it adds up. So since we already had this in mind, like we need to start saving for the future, looking at those numbers just frustrated me. And it was more frustrating because we didn't communicate about those expenses.
Yeah, it was. I was like, yeah, like I was telling her the numbers. Like, why wouldn't you know this?
Yeah, as if I was just supposed to know.
And in her defense, you know, like that was kind of my thing. It was kind of unspoken, but I would just update things. We'd pay them in a timely manner. Make sure we're not paying any interest. But then it's like, I think for you to see it, you were just like, what the fuck? And I literally felt the heat.
And at this point in time, New York City had already implemented that restaurants, bars, gyms, you had to be vaccinated to enter. So I started to anticipate that the next step was New York City schools. And I'm a New York City teacher who is against getting vaccinated until I deliver my son. I do not want to get vaccinated while I'm pregnant. So calculating the numbers is like, if I quit my job, we could stay afloat. We will have the basic necessities paid for. But then seeing that made me think like we would fail. Like there's no way. Like we're lacking discipline. There's no way I could quit my job. And now I'm in a position where because we're such terrible at money management, I have to get this vaccine that I don't 100% feel comfortable with.
Yeah, it was a lot.
It was just a whole bunch of puzzle pieces that made it more frustrating. And also made me not really think straight and be upset and like shifting blame towards you that shouldn't have been there. Because it wasn't like it was the first time we've had that discussion, but all those other factors with the vaccine, with work, was like, it was like a lot.
Heavy.
It was heavy. Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah. So now I've come back down to earth.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. We've decided that it's still in the best interest for our family for me to resign. We took a 40% income reduction just on our take-home pay.
Yeah.
So not including what we make on side hustles. So what does that mean for us?
It means if we weren't disciplined before, now it's time. It's not we're not going to be able to bail ourselves out of not being disciplined.
Yeah, we won't be able to. We don't have the cushion anymore.
Yeah. So all on board?
Definitely. So all of this to say that it was the perfect opportunity to bring on our first guest, Cindy. Who is Cindy? So Cindy is a financial expert that I found on Instagram a couple of years ago.
Did you know her before you knew Brittany?
No.
You didn't? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I found her on Instagram, and she was growing a following because she had paid off $215,000 worth of debt, mostly student loans, in 4 years. But when I started following her, she was still chipping at that amount. And every month she would post like how much she paid that month. And it was so exciting, right? And what I also loved about her is that she is a lawyer, which is why she had so much student debt. She could have easily said, well, I make 6 figures. I'm going to live in Chelsea. I'm going to get an expensive apartment in Soho. I'm going to vacation, and I'll just pay the minimum on my student loans, right? But she decided not to. She was disciplined, and she wanted to get rid of that debt before that. So I was really drawn to her because A lot of people tend to say, oh, but I don't make this, or I don't have enough that. And they compare themselves, but every situation is different and you could make a plan for you, you know? Which is why I absolutely loved her. And now she's a full-time entrepreneur. She recently resigned from her firm and she's pursuing zero-based budget coaching 100%.
Nice.
Which is a leap of faith, which is amazing. Which is kind of how I feel like, oh my God, I just had to quit my job and do this. Not as well planned as her. I'm not as financially prepared as her, but it's still like, oh God, like this is something I can relate to in a sense.
It's inspiring.
It is definitely inspiring. And she has this awesome product that was just released. Well, I think the release date is coming up.
We're in the pre-sale right now.
We're in the pre-sale right now. And if you want to get the discounted price, so right now the program is 30% off if you purchase it by September 6th, which is Sunday.
Yes.
I believe by September 6th, you could get it at the 30% off. The price is going to increase on September 7th. I still think even if you buy it after September 7th, it's still worth the value, but I can't explain that to you better than she can. So we're going to jump into the interview with her, and you'll learn all about it. You'll fall in love with Cindy the same way that I have.
Yeah, she's amazing.
She's awesome. Amazing.
Can we tell them the sad part now?
Well, you tell them because it's kind of your fault. No, I'm kidding.
It's not. So, we did how we always do. Same equipment as we always do. The only thing we did add, which had no bearing on what went wrong, was that we added Cindy via a third party, video platform.
Yeah. And that didn't malfunction at all.
Yeah. So you'll see Cindy great. But what we record ourselves on, the plan was what you'll still see is to have Cindy here. And then you'll still see us in the, the great quality that you're used to. For some reason, the recorder stopped.
Yeah, the recorder that records us stopped.
So the footage. Mm-hmm. So so I think at about 5 minutes into our interview with Cindy, you're gonna it's mainly gonna focus on Cindy. I'm pretty sure that's that we decided that we're gonna do. Mm-hmm. But the point. The footage of Cindy is still there. The audio of us is still there. So the messaging will still be there. And this only affects our YouTube community.
Yeah. If you're listening through audio only, like Spotify or Google Podcasts, it'll sound exactly the same.
Yeah, so that'll be the same. We're a little bummed about it, but things happen, and we just have to keep going. I think it's very ironic that this would happen to us on the episode that most people quit on. So.
Episode 10, right? So it's testing us. Give up.
No, but we definitely aren't giving up.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna work my magic and make it an enjoyable experience for the YouTube family. And yeah.
Well, welcome, Cindy. Hi, Cindy. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Cindy.
Hi. Thank you, guys. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. Thank you for saying yes. We had like a bunch of imposter syndrome. You're like a big deal in this house.
Oh, no. None of that. I was flattered. I was like, oh my gosh, yay. They like me.
And when you said yes, we were like, oh my God.
Yeah, we did a lot of dancing around the house when we got your email. So thank you so much.
Yay. Oh,
absolutely.
I love it.
So we did tell our listeners a little bit about who you were before you joined us, but I'm going to ask you, like, who are you? Why should people listen to your take in personal finance, and what makes it a little bit different than everybody else?
Yeah, sure. So, I was born and raised in the Bronx, and I have a very typical daughter of immigrant story. My parents both immigrated to this country in the early 70s. And, I was raised in a very low income community. We didn't have financial literacy growing up. And, I think that the big part of my story really is I graduated law school in 2015 with over $200,000 of debt. 90% of that debt was from law school because, surprise, law school is really expensive. And, I I knew I was taking on that kind of debt because it's what I needed to do, but you're not really so aware of the fact that not just that you're gonna have to pay it back, but the amount of your payments, like what that's gonna look like. And it just seemed like an impossible mountain to try to climb up. And it wasn't until I Googled, like I literally Googled, how do I pay off debt? Like, because I had no one around me that I could really ask these burning questions to.
Mm-hmm.
And, what I found in the internet was a lot of white men. Shocker,
Typical.
right, the financial services industry is made up by and for white men. And I think that when I realized that, I started realizing that, okay, I know I'm going to find the diamonds in the rough. I know I'm going to, I need to search. And so I did. And I started seeking out content created by women, but specifically important to me, of course, is women of color. And I found some, and that's all I needed though. I didn't need to find, dozens of people that were creating this kind of content. All I really needed was a few, and I did. And I found, some podcasters, YouTubers, bloggers that were writing about how to approach your finances. And it was from them that I really, really learned very deeply how to manage money, but from my own perspective, as the daughter of immigrants, as a Latina, as somebody from a very low income, community. And so I started Zero-Based Budget, my first on Instagram and now my business, because I wanted to not just document my journey. I wanted to tell people how I was paying off this debt. I wanted people to, kind of just ride with me on the journey. But I also wanted to educate people, because I realized that the most selfish thing that I could do is hoard the information to myself.
Gotcha.
I needed to tell my community about this. I needed to teach. I needed to educate the same way that those women educated me. I needed to be that educator to others. And that's why I really decided to go all in on, I'm going to start creating personal finance content. I'm going to start teaching about saving, investing, budgeting, paying off debt. I'm going to talk about all these things that no one ever really spoke about growing up. And, so I think that what makes me stand out the most, honestly, in this industry is my story. No one else can tell my story the way I can tell it. No one else can reach my community the way I can reach them. And so why not just go for it, And so that's what I did, and that's what I'm doing now.
Definitely. And I know from following you on Instagram for a couple of years, reading the articles that you've been featured on. I know you were on the Today Show, you were in Forbes, and a lot of those platforms use the clickbait. She paid off $250,000, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it sounds very impressive, and it is.
Yeah.
But some people might feel like that's out of reach.
Yeah.
So what would you say to people who say, well, but she's a lawyer, or she has a high income earner.
Yeah.
That's why she was able to do it. How do you reach those people and get them to see it where it's a little bit more relatable for them?
Yeah, so what I did is, starting in late 2018, I actually started coaching family members and friends on everything related to money, okay? Everything from, Cindy, I don't understand what APR means on a credit card statement. I don't know how to read my credit card statement. I don't know what these numbers mean, next to my student loan balance, all these things that people that, very educated people, okay? And I don't mean just educated by, they have a university degree. I mean just educated, period. Yeah. And they were overwhelmed and they had these questions. And from there, I started coaching, others. I said, beyond my family and friends. Mm-hmm. I'd say 90% of my clients do not earn anywhere near a six-figure income. Mm-hmm. And what I do then to reach them is, it's all about creating a plan. So you see, sure, your story might not be you pay off $215,000 of debt in 4 years, like that was my story, but you have your own. It all starts with a plan, however, no matter where you are, no matter what your circumstances are, whether you have $30,000 of debt or 100 or 200, like me, whether you make a 6-figure income, an average household income, or you're in the low income tax bracket, wherever you are, what you need is a plan, no matter what. And so, sure, our stories might not be the same in terms of, speed or sheer amount. But if you actually sit down and just talk to someone and just try to map out some type of a game plan, yes, you can achieve financial greatness too, even if our stories don't look identical. And that's okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We always talk about like, okay, we'll write a budget, but we also have to stick to it. So that was all resonating with me.
Yeah, the fun part is writing the budget. The hard part is sticking to it.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
You spoke briefly on when you were doing research for your own debt, the space was pretty much filled by a lot of white men.
Yeah.
I mean, were there any of them that you did take information from?
Yeah. So, the first thing I Googled, like when I tell people this story, they're like, oh, but like, what did you really search? And I was like, no, I don't think you understand. I literally Googled, how do I get out of debt? Enter. Like that's what I Googled, And so a very popular figure in the personal finance community is Dave Ramsey. He is a white man who preaches debt freedom. And, initially at the outset, I took a lot of his advice in terms of like, zero-based budgeting. That's the kind of budgeting that I do in terms of, you want to be aggressive with your debt payoff. But there's a lot of things that what he teaches is very much black and white. And I don't live in a black and white world. I live in a world where there is a lot of nuance. I live in a world where I help financially support my parents. I live in a world where it's not just about me. I can't just make it about me. And so even though there were a lot of things that I could take from that, in terms of like, okay, I need to create a debt repayment plan. I need to be very intentional with where my money is going. The nitty gritty of, for example, Dave Ramsey teaches no credit cards under any circumstances. And, I have 7. So like, there goes that, right? He teaches, your debt repayment has to be so aggressive that like, you're not allowed to go like out to eat. You're going to eat like rice and beans. And I am all about living every day, with intention and gratitude and joy. And I don't think that deprivation does anything for anyone, really. And I knew that if I deprived myself on the journey, I would resent it, and
it makes it harder to stick to it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I remember when I first started, I would feel guilty about buying coffee. Yeah, like that shouldn't be part of the journey.
No, like when I meet up with my clients and they're like, we get to like the personal like budget section and they're like, Cindy, I really like my manicures. And I'm like, well, girl, I'm all about the press on life. But for you, we're going to put manicures in the budget. Yeah. Why? Because you value it. So if you value it, who am I to say that you should now be deprived of that?
So would you say?
So I'm very much let's take a balanced approach. Some people aren't about that, but I am.
Yeah.
So would you say you're all about if it takes a little longer to hit that goal, but you enjoyed yourself during the way, it was worth it rather than eating noodles for 4 years?
Yeah, because the thing is that this is something for the long haul. A lot of times people have this, they're very confused. They think that the goal is debt freedom. That's not the goal. The goal is financial freedom. Mm-hmm. Debt freedom is a part of the journey. Yes, you want to become debt free, of course, but you also want to have money in your retirement accounts. You also want to have money in savings. If you have children, maybe you want to have a college savings account for them. So these are all things that are part of the journey. And if it means that it might take you a couple extra years, then fine. But what I will say is a lot of times people, they take it to the extreme as well, though, right? Mm. They'll be like, oh, but like, I need to just enjoy my life. Like, I just need to live like YOLO, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, you do want to do, I'm all about not just moderation, but intention. Be intentional about what you're doing and about your plan. And if you're intentional about your plan, whether you do it in 4 years like me, or 8 years, or 10 or 12, if there's intention behind it, you're not going to resent it.
Absolutely. That kind of reminds me of a totally different industry, but like diet culture, right?
Yeah.
If you're like losing 20 pounds, but then you don't
it's not
maintain.
sustainable.
Exactly. It's not sustainable. So it kind of reminded me of that connection.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go to a different question. So our podcast is a lot focused on relationships. And you are married. I know your husband. He's awesome, John Sanchez. So I wanted to ask, how did he feel about your financial freedom journey? And I know that you've been with him since high school sweetheart, which is also absolutely adorable. Yeah. So how has your relationship to money and him together changed throughout the years?
You know, what's funny is that I was the one that was panicking about my law school debt. John was very like, relax, babe. It's fine. Like, you know, and it's funny because he's actually really good with money. He is frugal. He is the saver in the relationship. I'm not. I'm the spender. I'm like, I want to just take my money, you know? Whereas he is definitely much more calculated, much more intentional, much more mindful when it comes to spending. But when it came to my debt specifically, he was like, you're a lawyer now. Like, the debt will get paid off. It's okay. But when I told him about really why I wanted to get out of debt, and for me, my why has always been my family. It's because I wanted to be able to free up that income to be able to help my family financially. You know, it's really hard to do that when your minimum payment is $3,000 a month, you know, which is what my student loan minimum payment was.
And a huge chunk of that was probably going to interest.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you have compound interest that's just stacking up on this debt. And so I wanted to just get rid of my debt really for that reason. And John understood that, which is why he was very, like, super supportive along the journey. And he was also supportive of me, you know, doing all this research and sending him articles that I was coming across about this or that, you know. In terms of how it's really evolved, I think that you know, as a couple, generally, we've very much evolved when it comes to not just our relationship, but also how we manage money, you know? So when we were younger, and I think this is, you know, just to backtrack for a second, you know, you mentioned that John and I have been together since high school. You know, we grew up together, basically. You know, we became adults together. Like, he's known me since I had like nothing, and same, you know, vice versa. Like, we literally come from nothing, no inherited wealth, no really outside help, to being able to, you know, he graduated from NYU, I graduated from, you know, as an attorney, like, being able to achieve these successes along the way. So I think that that's also played a really big role in a way that I think that had I had a relationship with someone that, let's say, I met just a couple of years ago, it would be different. You understand what I'm saying? It's like, you know, we really know each other from just like, you know, from years ago. So anyway, so to, you know, fast forward a bit, now the way that we talk about money is very much with an eye of how do we achieve financial independence? Now that we're married, that looks very different than when I was, you know, technically single, you know, paying off my debt. You know, when I paid off my debt, I had no help, you know, including from my partner. Like, you know, John wasn't making payments to my debt, and I would never expect him to do that, you know, because we were not married. But, you know, now that we are married, we very much perceive our money as it is our money. It's not my money and his. Gotcha. It is ours. Now, to be clear, do we have separate accounts? Yes. And the big reason for that is because I like managing what I bring in. I don't want to say my money because it's our money. I like managing what I bring in a certain way. I'm extremely particular, down to the penny. Like the other day, Stephanie, I don't know if you saw my Instagram story. I was off by $120 in my budget. And I was like, I literally went to John and I was like, I'm off by $120. Relax. He's like, relax. It's gonna be okay. You know, I'm that kind of person. He is not. He takes a different approach to, you know, in terms of managing the money. But what I say is you have to find what works for you, you know? And so it's definitely evolved from a very much like, you know, we ain't got it, period, you know, to being on the debt-free journey, especially for me. You know, he had way, way less debt than I did, you know, and then to now where we're having these conversations of more like financial independence and how we can achieve that as a married couple.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
With any of your clients that you have coached, have any of them come to you with like needing advice with how to get their partners on board to like create a budget?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And
always.
What do you say to that?
Always. Well, first I remind them I'm not a therapist. That is first, because you'll be surprised at the things that people like share.
That could be your next degree.
Right? I'm telling you, like, I don't have a degree in psychology or psychiatry or anything like that. But you know, a lot of people do trust me with certain information because money is inherently emotional. You know, money is emotional. And I think that, and money affects every aspect of our lives, you know, and when it comes to relationships, you know, whether it's that my clients are, you know, they have a partner, you know, as in they're not married in any way, or they're engaged, or they are married, or sadly they're going through a divorce, because I've had those too, you know. We have to have these conversations of course, managing money as a couple. And some people they take different approaches. Some people, everything is completely separate. You know, some people have a little bit of a hybrid, kind of like what John and I do, which is, you know, you'll have like a shared savings account and then you'll have like separate checking accounts, for example.
Gotcha.
And then some people do it all together, right? Everything is completely, you know, one. But the most frequent thing that comes up is, how do I get my partner on board? And I think that the very important thing to keep in mind is that no one likes to be scolded, ever. You know, so you coming at your partner, telling them, why are you spending the money on this? Or who do you think? That's not going to get you anywhere at all. You have to come from a place of love and of understanding. And I'm not trying to sound cheesy. I'm trying to say it as someone who, you know, growing up, I saw a lot of issues in my own family because of money. You know, issues that could have been prevented if you came from a place of love, understanding, and of course, communication. And so what I always advise my clients to do is you want to first pinpoint, what is it that you have an issue with? Is it overspending? Is it maybe that they don't make enough income and you resent that? Because some people are not ready to have that conversation, but that's what's back here. But there, you know, so what is the issue? The next thing you want to do is you want to approach your partner more from like hey, look at what I'm learning. Look at what I learned. I tell people all the time, I'm like, just send them my Instagram account. Just send them my account. Send them my website. Be like, oh, look at this girl that like I checked out. I read her story. Look, you know, this article, or it obviously doesn't have to be me. It could literally be anyone, right?
Yeah.
And tell them like, you know, what are your goals? That's where you start.
Yeah. I used to do that with Travis. I would like send him different Instagram posts. Like, this could be us, but.
Oh yeah. You know, like you come from a place of like first of all, I am still learning. I am still a student in this. But while I'm in this learning phase, what are your goals? Where do you see? And they're like, oh, well, like, you know, I want to have a house. I want to have but how do you realistically think we're going to achieve that? For example, if you're in New York City homes are crazy expensive, you know? So if let's say your partner wants to buy a house in New York City, well, what is that going to look like? Maybe we need to take out an FHA loan. Oh, what's an FHA loan? Well, let's research that together. Let's look it up. What are the requirements? Would we meet those requirements? You know, you want to start from that angle of what are our goals, and maybe also what are your like individual goals, you know, because people have individual goals too. That's fine. Just because you're married or just because you have a partner doesn't mean that you can't have your individual, you know, financial goals. That's fine too, but talk about that. Then when you have that laid out on the table about what the goals are, both of you can now start talking about the plan. And the plan is going to require education, you know, podcasts, YouTube videos, blogs, the whole thing, right? Books, like everything that, you know, I was sharing earlier that I did. And so little by little, that is how you can kind of introduce the conversation, you know, but to just come at it from a place of like, you know, I don't like what you're spending your money on. Well, you know what? Your partner probably doesn't like some of the stuff you're spending your money on. You know?
Absolutely.
I always say that one of the things that kind of accidentally happened for us when we were paying off our debt was, I think you started from smallest to largest.
So we did like the snowball.
And it just so happened that the smaller ones were mine. So I start to see my credit score go up and I'm getting excited. And then it's just like, all right, let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Yeah. But share in that experience, right? I think that's the powerful thing, right? That both of you had, is that you had the ability to share in that experience. And I think that if, you know, for example, with John, you know, my husband, like, sure, he wasn't making payments to my debt, right? But he was still sharing in the experience with me. He was right next to me when I hit submit final payment and became debt free. You know what I mean? So share in those experiences, even if you're not married, you're able to do that. But what I will say is a big, big no-no for your listeners is to avoid the conversation. Because if you avoid the conversation, especially in the dating phase, and then you're like, well, we'll just get to that when no, that is where you need to deal with it. In the dating phase, what are your partner's financial goals? What's their credit score? What's their income? Like, and you might think about it like, oh my, Cindy, I can't ask them. Why not? You probably talk about your sex lives. Why don't you talk about your money?
I always say that. I'm like, we're so
you probably do more than just talk about it.
Exactly. See,
come on, right? Like,
see,
come
Cindy,
on.
we're here because I totally get that. I totally get that.
No, we're all adults. Sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, like I can't. How dare you ask me what my salary is?
Yep. And sex and money are both taboo, but money is way more. Like, people are more afraid to talk about money.
And it honestly doesn't make sense. You know, what I always say is money is the one thing on this planet that affects every single person, no matter your class, your race, your sex, your gender, where you live geographically in the world. Money affects you. It affects where you woke up today. It affects what kind of food you eat. It affects what kind of job you have. So if money is one of the things that affects every aspect of your life, why aren't you talking about it?
Absolutely.
Why do you think it's so hard for us to talk about money? Like, I barely know what my friends bring in. They don't know what I bring in. I don't know what type of debt they have. I've never had conversations about money with my parents. It's just not a subject that comes up. So what do you think it is about money that does that for us as a culture?
I think culturally, it's that. Well, that's where I think it starts. It's culturally, because it's funny, when I went to law school, is when I started making a lot of friends white friends, and a lot of my friends, and I don't mean to generalize at all, but a lot of them did come from some type of financial privilege. Like, that was the first time that I started meeting people that have like trust funds, or that their parents were paying their, you know, $3,500 a month rent in like Chelsea. Like, that's the first time that I came, you know, around that kind of, that kind of environment. And they spoke a lot about money in their houses, you know, in their households, you know, with their parents. And I found that, you know, that was definitely not the case for mine. I think that a big part of it culturally is that people consider it to be rude. People consider it such an intimate detail about themselves. Unfortunately, because society places value on who you are as a person by how much you make. And that's a societal problem, you know, because people find out that I'm a lawyer and say, oh, you're a lawyer, very nice. Like,
and when people find out I'm a teacher, they're like, oh, you only
you know, and it's like, My dad, he'll like carry around my business card in his wallet. And I'm like, I'm actually not practicing law right now. I left my job a couple months ago. So I'm like, papi, like you might wanna like, because technically I don't work there anymore. But it's like, my oldest sister, she's a teacher. My middle sister's a fashion designer. And just like, I see it. I see how people automatically just their expressions change, right? Because we place such value on what we do and what we earn and not who we are. And I think that because there's such high value, Travis, to your question, on why, this is taboo, because there's such value in that part of you, status, wealth. It's almost like shame of, well, is what I'm doing enough? Maybe it's not. And then people are going to look at me differently. And, for me personally, before I started all of this, we didn't really talk about money like that in my family. I was always, from when I was a little girl, I was always the one, if anyone, that's going to talk about money in some way. I don't know why. I've just always been that way. I've always been very mindful of money and, saving it and, well, unfortunately spending it in my college years, but we didn't really have these conversations. And so it wasn't until my journey that I started having these conversations with my sisters. We started talking about debt. We started talking about credit cards. With my parents, I started teaching them about, how to effectively pay off debt because compound interest is working against me. Like they didn't even really understand these concepts. My parents never invested, they never had the exposure to investing. And so I teach them about that. Just yesterday I was on the phone with my mom and we were talking about the stock market, and now my mom herself is not at her age, going in and picking investments or anything like that, but just to be able to have those conversations with my closest friends. I started being the one that would bring about these money conversations. And what I found is that a lot of my friends found it very liberating because they were like, oh my gosh, I have so much debt right now. Oh my gosh, I have so much credit card debt. I don't know about, like there's so many things that I think is actually liberating when someone introduces it. But I do think, like, I still try to be careful because I try to be mindful that not everyone's comfort level is where I am, and that's okay. I respect that. But I think that I find that when I just introduce it a little bit, like now it's very easy because now all of my friends know that this is what I do. And so they just be coming to me. They're like, Cindy, by the way, I just paid off my credit card. That's amazing. Like, but you know what? But why store all that energy for me? Did you tell your partner about it? Did you tell your mom about it? So that's why I think that when you start making space for the conversation, people will embrace it. I think so.
We had some friends that were struggling with debt and, we were telling them, write down all your debt, get a total, see it face to face. And when they wrote it down, they started crying or the wife started crying.
Oh yeah.
And it goes back to your point. It's such a sensitive topic. Yeah, that was tough for them.
Yeah. And definitely sometimes since we come from low income families, no generational wealth, sometimes we're afraid of sounding like we're being boastful if we're able to make a debt payment or something. And then we're like, oh my God, am I coming off as like bougie or like disconnected?
I've struggled with that a lot, actually. On a personal note, I definitely struggled with that because, now my husband and I, we've been able to, achieve a degree of financial success that is unlike anyone that we know in our circle. And, we try to be careful with that because we don't ever want anyone to feel less than or inferior in any way possible or at all, thinking that we're judging. Like we're judging them because they're taking that trip or because they're buying that car or anything like that. And so I think that we just try to be very mindful of that. But it is definitely something that I've struggled with personally. And I try to, I try to watch myself, but at the same time, I realize how rare it is to see this in our communities, to see people achieving levels of financial freedom that, I feel like it might be a little uncomfortable even sometimes for me, but someone out there is listening that might need the little boost of encouragement. So,
And I'd rather hear it from Cindy from the Bronx than from, some white guy from the Midwest.
Yeah, it's like, all right, great, Harry. Like, I'm so happy for you.
Okay, so now the big part of why we wanted to meet with you today. You have launched what you call your BFF, which I think is amazing. And I want to give you the floor to tell us what the BFF is. Why do we need it? Because Travis and I definitely need it right now.
Well, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share this with your, with your audience. So after many years of coaching, really coaching hundreds and speaking to thousands, I decided to take all the information that I teach, especially my one-on-one clients, and package it up in a course that I've called The Blueprint to Financial Freedom, aka Your Money BFF. Nice. And I created the BFF because I wanted people from a very just like fundamental, like, let's just bring it back to basics, learn about money. Because everything that we see out there is just sexy, right? It's like Bitcoin and Robinhood and this and that and trading. And that's the sexy part of money that that people like to shove down our faces, right? And it's like, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of those things at all. I wish I would have gotten in on Bitcoin years ago. But I think that what a lot of people in our communities are dealing with, and that's not to say that I don't want people to learn how to invest, because there's actually a whole, one of the modules is a complete module dedicated to investing specifically for retirement, but a lot of our community, what we need is the basics. We need to learn, like, how do I properly manage my money? How do I set up my money systems? Okay. If I don't want to track every single dollar, because look, guys, even though I'm all about tracking every single penny, that's not for everyone. And that's okay. But there is a system that you can set up with your bank accounts to have the money flow very, very seamlessly. I teach that. I teach, how do you save up for the big goals, the house, the car, the wedding? How do you save for the midterm goals? I want to go on a nice trip to Paris, like all these things. How do we do that while balancing it? Also, and very importantly, no surprise, how do I pay off my debt? People ask me, Cindy, what are the debt strategies that you used? How was it that you were able to save? I saved about $40,000 on my interest. So it wouldn't have been 215 that I paid off. It would have been 255, okay? Which is like disgusting, but whatever, it is what it is. But Cindy, how was it that you were able to save that amount on interest? Cindy, I don't understand student loans. There's a whole lesson just dedicated to student loans, dedicated to student loan forgiveness programs, the common mistakes I see people make when it comes to those programs, So we take a very holistic view to finances by talking about budgeting, saving, paying off debt. And then lastly, in the last module is we talk about investing for retirement. Who's going to have your back when it's time to retire? The government? I don't know. Maybe not, but why don't you set yourself up for that, for future you? And so I teach how you can realistically, without a six-figure income, retire a millionaire. So the lesson is actually titled, So You Think You Can Retire a Millionaire? I think something like that. I need to check the actual words. Girl, when I was like, creating that course, I was like, it was late at night and I was like all into it. I'm like, I will get this done, but it's really, the course is my love letter to my community. Yeah. It is. It's really, let me package up what I have learned in something that's easy to follow, something that's relatable, something that's visual. So you're going to have video lessons in the course. You're going to have, of course, the actual presentation, like you can actually see like the text and follow along. You're going to have homework items. You're going to have a workbook that you can completely customize. You can download it straight onto Google Sheets if you want to, or onto Excel or wherever, and you'll plug in numbers and it'll auto populate things for you. And so the reason why I created it is because I want people to achieve financial freedom, wherever they are.
It sounds so important because, like you said, the sexy stuff is popular.
Yeah.
Are you investing? Course. People were talking about whatever happened with AMC or Robinhood and all these things that someone who doesn't have an understanding of the basics isn't even going to worry about, isn't going to care, is too afraid to invest. I remember a few years ago when Bitcoin was like hot, I was like, I'm worried about making sure I make rent this month. I can't think about investing. Yeah. So I feel like what you're telling us about the BFF is so important so that people can get to a place where they could eventually invest without fear.
Exactly. And that's what we do, in that last module. The reason why it's the last module is because I want you to go through just the fundamentals and really understand, why is it that your credit card bill keeps going up even though you keep paying it? Why is that? Why does that happen? There's actually a mathematical reason to why that happens. And just so I'll share with your audience, it's because whatever you are paying is not sufficient to cover the interest, which is the fee that the bank charges you. So if you are not doing enough to cover that fee, and remember, the banks will always get their money, then they're not even allowing you to touch the principal. And that's why your next statement, even though you paid it, that's why your balance is increasing. Why do these things happen? And I think that when we educate, when we offer this information to our community achieves greatness. We already know that. We're a community that is very, very familiar with adversity and all kinds of obstacles, and I think that when we get this information, we can really take it and run with it. And so that's why, I wanted to create something that's accessible. I wanted to create something that is at a reasonable price point, that also includes coaching. So it does also include group coaching. And the real purpose of the group coaching is just to ask me your questions. Like if you just went through the lesson that was covering refinancing and you're like, Cindy, I have a little bit of a question about that. So if I wanted to do talk to me. Let's talk about it.
So
because you shouldn't be alone. Yes.
On top of the modules and everything that they get to work at their own pace, they get to meet with you in a group setting as well.
Yeah. So
that's
they
awesome.
Actually get our group coaching starts September 14th. I believe it's a Tuesday. So if you enroll before that first coaching session, you actually get technically 4 free months of coaching, group coaching. Wow. It's unheard of. In the personal finance industry, these programs cost thousands. And I know because I'm in the industry, but I came at it from a place of all right, I don't want you to just take the course and then have all these questions and you don't have anyone to go to. I want to be there for you. And so we meet twice a month, just 1 hour, just quickly ask any questions, any clarifying points. And because you don't have to do this journey on your own. I don't think anyone should be doing this journey on their own because I certainly didn't. I had the support of family and friends and a community, an online community. So I want to try to give that as well to my community.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
Do you feel that anyone, no matter the circumstance, no matter the debt number, no matter the income they may lack, this will be a program for them?
Absolutely. And the reason why I say that is because the people that I coached, I never had in the intake forms, how much debt do you have? How much do you make? Now, do I ask you those questions? Of course, because we need to lay all the numbers out on the table, during the coaching session. But I don't try to filter out people by asking them those numbers. Unfortunately, a lot of personal finance products will. And the BFF doesn't at all, because whether you are a college student that just has, the part-time job, or whether you are the 6-figure earner with a 6-figure debt, whatever, wherever you fall in between that, all of these principles are going to be things that you can apply in your everyday life. This isn't a get rich quick program. It's not at all. I'm not going to teach you about Forex. I barely know how to. Listen, if I get one more of those spam comments on my post, I'm gonna lose it. But anyways, like what we teach are real concepts that I hope you then teach those around you. Like remember the point here is not to hoard this information. Definitely. Right? Like the hope is that you're going to take this information and you're going to, tell your partner, you're going to teach your children, your best friends, like everything I think is done in such an intentional way that no matter where you fall on the spectrum, you're going to gain some type of value out of it. Somebody messaged me today, like, Cindy, I don't have any debt. Like, do you think this would still be good for me? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, you need to learn how to manage your money. You want to learn how to achieve those big savings goals. She's like, yeah, like I do think I want to save for a house. And I'm like, so you're going to take out a mortgage?
That's debt.
Yeah. Ding, ding, ding. Why? Because all of these concepts follow us through life. This isn't just you don't have to learn how debt works because you don't have debt at the moment. Chances are you probably will take on some debt. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't believe in good debt, bad debt, at all. Debt to me is debt. Debt is debt. That is debt. Yeah. I don't need to attach an adjective to it. It is just debt. Because
I think that's how people live with it. So they'll say, this is student debt. It's good debt.
This is the perfect thing that I always say. People will say, now, do I think there is a more harmful form of debt? Yes. And for me, that's credit cards. Specifically because of the high interest that is attached to credit cards. However, if you take out a credit card that has the 18-month of free interest and you use it very strategically for what you need and you pay it off before the 18 months, I don't think that's harmful. I think that's a smart use of debt, actually. If you get a degree and that degree somehow it added some value to your life, to your career, or whatever it is, I wouldn't call that bad debt. Now, if you went to school and took on debt because your parents forced you to and you hated it, you got no value out of it, I don't think that's good debt, right? Maybe, you know what I mean? That's why I don't
These are the nuances you were talking about.
That's why I'm not going to attach an adjective to it. It just is what it is. And what I will say, and as a lawyer, I will say is that unless there is some type of forgiveness attached to it, you legally have to pay it back. So might as well learn how to do it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's amazing. I'm sold. So where can our audience find the BFF?
Yeah, so the easiest way to find it is on my Instagram at Zero Based Budget. It's the link in my bio.
It's
so
the link
in the bio will take you there. It'll show you, exactly the breakdown. Like if you're curious, you want to see what each module contains, the frequently asked questions that I've gotten, and also my client testimonials. Don't take it from me. Don't.
Yeah.
No, because that's not it, right? What I want you to see is what my clients have to say, but also what I want you to take note of is take a look at what my clients look like, because their photos are there. What do they look like?
Yeah.
And the reason why I think that's important is because I do think that seeing ourselves reflected in this world makes a big difference. Absolutely. It makes a huge difference.
Representation.
Representation matters. It really matters. It's not just a slogan.
Absolutely.
We're not just these big companies that just be like, we care about diversity. That doesn't mean anything to me, So so I encourage people at the very least to just check out the page on the BFF so you can read more about it. And if you have any questions, my messages are there. You can just hit me with a message.
Yeah, you're really good about responding and everything.
I try to be.
You are.
She responded to us.
Wild people. Yeah, except for the wild people. There'd be people that be out of pocket. And I'm
never mind. Block. Well, thank you so much, Cindy. Our hearts are full. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Cindy.
And we wish you all of the success in the world. And We're so happy to have you on our show.
Thank you. Thank you again for inviting me. I'm so happy I was able to tune into your podcast, and like I'm looking forward to listening to the other episodes because I'm
okay.
this is fun. This is entertaining, but it's also real, you know, it's also real. And I think that, I think that sometimes we're afraid of having these types of conversations that kind of get you a little uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think they're necessary to have because, you know, it does affect our lives. So
absolutely.
Why not? Yeah.
And like money, like we were saying, how sometimes we might come off like out of touch with people.
Yeah.
I noticed that as a married woman, people will say, but you're married, or you have Travis, as if my experience as a woman is less than now because I'm no longer a single person.
Right.
So all of that all ties in together.
Right. Absolutely. Yep. Totally agree. Yeah.
So Cindy, I started this thing that I end every episode asking Stephanie, baby, do you still like me? But since you're our first guest, I'm going to throw it to you. So Cindy, do you still like us?
Even more.
Yay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
guys.
Cindy.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.